Life is often like a giant marketplace. Everywhere you look, there are endless options, career choices, personal dreams, opportunities, relationships. And in the middle of it all, a person feels torn. Should I do this? Or maybe that? Or perhaps both? By the end of the day, the to-do list looks endless. But the heart whispers, what did I really achieve today? This is the very crossroad where the story of Arjun begins. Arjun was an ordinary young man with extraordinary restlessness in his heart. He studied well, had a decent job, but his mind was always troubled by one question. What is the true purpose of my life? He wanted to be a writer, an entrepreneur, a traveler, all at once. But that very desire to do everything left him confused and unsatisfied. One evening, Arjun was watching an old film with a friend. In one scene, a wise old cowboy looks at the hero, raises a single finger, and says, "Do you know the secret of life? It's just one thing. Stick to it, and everything else becomes meaningless." That moment struck Arjun like an arrow. Could it really be this simple? He thought. Is success just about focusing on one thing? That night he could not sleep. He thought about his past. Whenever he had put all his energy into one pursuit, he had excelled. In school, when he focused only on painting, he won a national award. In college, when he devoted himself entirely to debates, he became university champion. But the moment he tried to juggle too many goals, his efforts scattered and his results crumbled. The next morning, Arjun made a decision. From today, I will find my one thing. That one focus which, if I commit to it, will make everything else easier or even unnecessary. But identifying that one thing was not easy. For weeks he filled his diary with dreams. I want to write books. I want to start a business. I want to travel the world. But every time he wrote, an inner voice said, choose just one. Let the rest align themselves with it. In his search for clarity, Arjun went to meet his mentor, Sadanand, an elderly teacher who had dedicated his entire life to service and knowledge. Arjun poured out his confusion. Guruji, I try to do many things at once, but nothing feels complete. How do I know my true one thing? Sadanand smiled and said, life is like a fair. There are hundreds of stalls. If you take a little from every stall, you end up with nothing valuable. But if you stop, think, and choose carefully from just one stall, you get exactly what you need. Success is the same. It comes from focus. Then Sadanand narrated a story. A farmer once lined up small stones like dominoes. He pushed the first tiny one, and soon the entire row of larger stones began to fall. A single small push triggered a giant cascade. That is the law of life. Begin with one small thing, stay with it. And over time it will knock down the biggest walls in your path. Arjun felt as if someone had lit a lamp in the darkness. The secret was focus. He returned with new determination. At work, he had been juggling a job, side hustles, a YouTube channel, and freelance projects. He dropped everything else and decided, I will put all my energy into mastering my current job. At first, people laughed at him. But soon his dedication started showing results. His boss, who had once barely noticed him, began praising him. Arjun realized clarity multiplies results. He applied the same principle to his relationships. He asked, what is the one thing my family needs from me? The answer was simple, time. So he set aside daily time for his parents and siblings. Slowly, warmth returned to his household. Next, he turned to his health. What is the one thing I can do to improve it? His answer, daily morning run. He began running every morning, and soon his body grew stronger, his mind calmer. Everywhere he looked, the rule was the same. Focus on one thing, and everything else falls into place. But Arjun's story was just beginning. Life, after all, is not a straight line. The real test comes when challenges arrive. Arjun had now grasped the principle of focus. But knowing the rule and living it every day are two different things. Life soon tested him with fire. Months later, Arjun's company landed a massive project, one that could decide its future. Arjun was entrusted with a key role. He threw himself into it wholeheartedly. But just then, an old friend approached him. "Arjun, let's start a new business together," his friend insisted. "The market is booming. If we miss this chance, it will never come again." The old Arjun would have jumped in without hesitation. But now he paused. He asked himself, "Is this my one thing right now?" The answer was clear. "No. My one thing right now is making this project a success." He smiled at his friend and said, "Not now. My priority is this project." His friend laughed. "You're making a mistake. You'll lose your chance." But Arjun stood firm. He had learned the art of saying no. Months of sweat and focus followed. Finally, the project was a huge success, and Arjun was promoted to a senior position. The same friend later admitted, "I rushed into that business, but without focus, it collapsed." "You did the right thing." Arjun simply replied, "Success is like dominoes. Push the first one, and the rest follow." But life's tests did not end there. With promotion came overwhelming responsibilities, emails, meetings, reports, phone calls, urgent tasks all competing for his attention. The temptation of multitasking grew strong. At first, he tried to do everything at once. But soon his mind scattered and mistakes piled up. One night, he opened his diary and wrote, "From tomorrow, I will do only one thing at a time." And he lived by it. At the office, if he was writing emails, he wrote emails, nothing else. In meetings, he was fully present. When preparing reports, he shut off his phone. The effect was magical. His work became faster, sharper, and more effective. Colleagues began noticing. "How do you stay so calm and yet finish so much?" they asked. Arjun replied, "I don't do more things. I do fewer things, but better." Slowly, even his team adopted his method. He was no longer just changing himself. He was shaping others too. Then came his toughest test. Arjun's mother fell seriously ill. The hospital visits, medicines, and constant care shook him. On one hand was his career, on the other, his family. For days, he felt torn apart. But then he remembered Sadanand's words, "Choose the most important one thing." He asked himself, at this moment, what is my one thing? The answer was immediate, my mother. Arjun took leave from work and devoted himself to her care. He cooked for her, read to her, sat by her side through the nights. Slowly, she recovered. And in that process, Arjun realized a deeper truth. Family is the foundation on which every other success stands. When his mother's health returned, Arjun came back to work with even greater strength. His clarity was now unshakable. But he wasn't satisfied with personal success alone. He wanted to give back. He asked himself again, "What is my one thing for society?" The answer whispered, education. Arjun started small, a tiny library in his village with just a handful of books. At first, only 5 children came. But word spread. More children joined. Then volunteers from his office offered to help. What began as a shelf of books slowly grew into a learning center. Within a few years, dozens of village kids passed competitive exams, breaking free from poverty. Parents blessed Arjun. Newspapers wrote about him. He had become more than a professional. He was a change maker. Reporters once asked him in an interview, "What's the secret behind all this?" Arjun smiled and said the same words he had once heard in a film long ago. "It's just one thing. Find your one thing and stay with it. Everything else will follow." Years passed. Arjun became a respected leader in his profession, a devoted son, and a guide for his community. But more than money, fame, or power, his true achievement was clarity. His life was simple, yet deeply meaningful. In his diary, on the last page, he wrote, "Life is not a race where we run in every direction. Life is a journey where we walk in one direction with full heart. When we focus on our one thing, the world arranges itself for us. Success is not magic, it is focus. And focus is what makes an ordinary person extraordinary. As Arjun closed the diary, his eyes shone. He had discovered the eternal secret of life. Hold on to one thing, and everything else will change on its own.